There are a lot of people on the internet who've started to wake up to the connection between what's in Bible history and, mostly the Old Testament, but also the New Testament, and the truths that are in there. They're starting to no longer look at those men as stupid, illiterate, know-nothing fools. They were just as smart as we were. They just didn't have technology. Anyway, with regards to this Nibiru thing, it does seem to be something there, because if you go back to the time of ignoring the last big trouble, which was the flood, if you go back 3,600 years ago roughly, there's Joshua in some having a fight with some people, and obviously the Elohim had told him what was going to happen that day, so he turns around to the Israelites and in front of all of them he says, "Sun, stand still where you are." Wasn't talking to his son, he was talking to the star in the sky. He said, "Sun, stand still where you are. Moon, stand still and do not go down until I have taken vengeance on my enemies." And at the same time as that happened, evidently the sun stood still for a day. Now, for that to happen, that's pretty freaky, isn't it? Some sort of, I don't know about pole shift, but the something big happened for the Earth to keep the same fucking attitude towards the sun as and for the moon to stay where it was. The Earth sort of had to have stopped rotating somehow, or something. At the same time as that, it says that there was a massive fucking, excuse my French, a massive hailstorm, but rocks, well, I think it was rocks anyway, massive hailstorm fell down, and more people were killed, more of their enemies were killed by the hailstorm than were killed in battle. And this was about 3,600 years ago. So there does seem to be something to it. What all the other, I won't go into what the governments know about what's happening, because most of the other videos of caring people do seem to be covering it pretty well. The government knows, and the government's lying to everybody. And they say it's not to have everybody worry, but that's not the case. There's more going on. Our governments have long been under the control of Lucifer, or Anu, or Anarchy. I remind you of Christ's temptation. The devil took him up to a high mountain, showed him all of the kingdoms, governments of the world, and said, "Fall down and worship me, and I will give you control of all of these." Now, Christ wasn't a dummy. Far from it. He was being offered control of a planet that was due to blow up. The day of the Lord. Now here's where a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, bullshit, bullshit." Now stop and think. You've been lied to about everything else. You've also been lied to about sunspots. What they are is a localized lack of hydrogen fuel. Now, for a localized lack of hydrogen fuel, there has to be pretty low levels of hydrogen fuel everywhere else in the star. What happens when they run out of hydrogen fuel? They go Klaatoom, or bang, or whatever word you want to put in there. That's the good news. The other side of the coin. There is good news. Christ came to offer those who will trust in, cling to, believe in, and worship Him. You've got to lower your spirit to Him, because He is the Elohim incarnated. Those who are willing to lower their spirit to Him and love Him, because, let's face it, we treated Him like shit, and He knew beforehand, but He came down to love us, teach us, and become one with us. He's got a lot of love, Christ. Not the other guy. The other guy, Lucifer, power freak, power jockey. He wants control of everything. Now you give Lucifer everything you got, and he'll give you 90% back at first. and make you feel really good. And then he'll give you 80% back, make you feel really good. And then he'll give you 70%, and before you know it, he'll own everything you have. Whereas when you love Christ, he gives you everything you have back, plus more. His love is genuine. Anyway, Christ was these Elohim, the Lord of all of these Elohim, these big, look quite a bit like us. He's came to be one of us, so that when this star finally goes supernova on what's called the Day of the Lord, fulfilling the 3rd chapter of the 2nd book of Peter, when that finally happens, this whole solar system is going to turn into a solar system-wide lake of fire. There was no other way for Christ to describe it other than a lake of fire. And that's the good news, is that, yeah, that's pretty scary. Matter of fact, that's the second most scary thing I've ever heard of. There is one scarier thing that happens to hypocrites. But the church was teaching that, you know, hellfire and the lake of fire and the torment of sinners and damnation, they were teaching that it's all the result of an angry God who hates people that make error. You were lied to. The church was taken over by the Great White Brotherhood through Clement of Rome in 100 AD. He was preaching about the Clement of Rome, the 3rd Pope. He was teaching about the phoenix taking its nest and its bones to the sun temple at Helios, and he was calling the Almighty the great architect of the universe. That's Great White Brotherhood stuff. So by 100 AD, the church had been taken over by the Brotherhood. Well, it didn't stay that way, because in 1084, the British Israelite tribes that had escaped from the Assyrian and Babylonian diaspora, they went to country just outside of Russia proper, and they were there until 1084. The Normans. That is the Zionists. Now, they came and took the church over in 1084. Inquisitions, crusades, total bastardry. And, if you fucking look at it, anti-Jewish pogroms. It was all run by Jacobean Zionists, aka Illuminati. Anyway, the real gospel, the real good news, is that Christ became a human. He didn't have to, but the Lord of all of those Elohim became a human to become one with us. When we go through that lake of fire, he's offered to rescue us. Now, nobody will ever have the psychic knowledge or the spiritual power to project their heart across space, or, once they're dead, across space, or to project their heart out of the lake of fire. Can't be done. But what these Elohim are going to do, Christ is one of them, and he's also one of us. They're going to go through Christ, and they're going to reach through, and they're going to pull Christ's heart out of the lake of fire, and through Christ's heart they're going to pull everyone who believes in him out of the fire. Everyone who loves him and trusts in him and clings to him and relies upon him. They're going to rescue us, humanity. Those who don't get a rescue, and it isn't only the evil, it can be just those who just never found out, didn't know there was an offer, and that's criminal. For those who stop the gospel being known, they'll get theirs. I'll tell you what happens to them later on. Well, they get thrown out past the edge of the fricking universe and left there. Be conscious out there in the darkness forever. But anyway, the good news, these Elohim became Christ, and they're offering us a rescue. Now look at those sunspots. They're a localized lack of hydrogen fuel. I'll talk more about it in the next video.